Bryan Lewandowski, how's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Everything going okay over there in Pittsburgh?
Yep, fantastic, man. Yeah, we're just kind of it's just starting to cool down a little bit. So yeah, it's been nice. We're in that like 70-degree range right now. So yeah, everything's good, man.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your history as a filmmaker?
Yeah, so I actually started drawing and then painting and sculpting and things like that. So I actually always loved art and stuff. But like as I got older, I kind of wanted something that challenged me more, I guess, because like every medium was kind of as fun as it was. I wanted to kind of do something more challenging. So film for me was something that it was just an amalgamation of all those different mediums in one art form. So I knew as I got older, I was always going to be challenged to kind of try to master. I knew I was never going to master, all of them, obviously, but that's kind of how I got into it. I always had a fascination with art in general, but when I got older, I was like, man, I can't just stick to one. If I was like, oh, if I'm going to be an illustrator, I know that'll get boring within a couple years time, growing up. And I just kind of, I don't know. I was so obsessive about everything I was doing, even as a kid, that I knew way ahead of time. I got to amalgamate all these things together. So film for me was a way to harness all those crafts in one. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then my dad was a military guy, so we kind of moved around all over the place. So art was always something I could always tap into and escape and things like that. But I never really had too many friends either that would help me like do anything. So I think that the pursuit of always trying to get better was always another sort of a deep reservoir I could always kind of get lost in and stuff too. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah. Were there any particular movies that you watched them and you're like, oh, that's what I need to do, or was
yeah,
it?
dude, yeah, it's Jurassic Park. My dad took me to go
Nice.
see Jurassic Park in '93, and yeah, that was just it blew my mind. I don't even, years and years after, obviously, you watch it again and again, you realize there's so many deeper things happening there in terms of like the thematic stuff. And the story always kind of kept me coming back to kind of discover more layers to that story. I mean, aside from the simplicity of what that story is, just the scientific sort of deeper themes there I always thought were really fascinating. But yeah, I think that movie kind of has it all. I mean, even like Jaws. Like Jaws was obviously a big movie because I was always more interested in movies that kind of did everything for the audience. It wasn't trying to be a character-driven movie and not know that it was supposed to entertain people in terms of utilizing spectacle to get a broader sort of audience into the thing. So for me, it was always those bigger movies that kind of, and I'm not saying like the spectacle stuff was really that exciting. It was just, if you look at a movie like Jurassic Park, what you realize is there's so many things happening in that movie in terms of the visual effects stuff, the amazing writing, the directing, even the acting. There was just everything, the cinematography, everything about that movie it shows you that there's so many craftsmen behind the scenes just nailing everything they're doing. And just watching a movie where everything's being done in such a masterful way was always really impressive to me. So watching those movies, and Jaws obviously more in particular was a movie that I felt like it's hard to beat a movie that well-rounded. So those movies always excited me.
Yeah, I think those movies are great examples. I just watched Jurassic Park again the other day because it's such a good movie to like go back to for like screenplay format. Well, I guess not format, but structure.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so great. The only thing I think aged kind of poorly, and maybe I don't know if you agree with me on this, is the Brachiosaurus when they first see it, and you kind of get the CGI movement where it looks a little PS1, but everything else, it's either obscured with like nighttime and rain, which it looks great,
exactly.
Or they're like moving so quickly, and that it was just so they did such a good job hiding the bad CGI,
Yep. Yeah, even that. Yeah, no, to your point, I'm actually glad you brought that up because I think that's another level of mastery, knowing where your strengths and your weaknesses are and how to fool an audience into believing what is really obviously not there anyway. But when you're presented with like, how the hell do we bring a, this thing to, light? It's just, you already know, like, well, I don't believe it. I'm the one, or rather, if you're the filmmaker, you're thinking, I don't believe it. So how the hell am I going to convince myself? But knowing like the standard of realism is impossible to the person making it, let alone trying to obviously fool an audience, but then realizing, or at least being honest enough with yourself to say, okay, we're not going to be able to do this well. Like even like on back to the visual effects thing, it's, yeah, like even the way the animation's kind of rudimentary, or knowing the texture resolution is not going to be there even. Because now, like you watch any scene in Jurassic Park with the CGI and stuff, you're looking at it and you're like, man, those textures are just not there. Like, I don't know. Like, everything else is 4K and looks great, but it's like those textures are just so low resolution. But yeah, even because obviously when they presented the movie to an audience, they're like, well, it's going to be kind of presented in a 2K format, so we can kind of muddy the water a little bit there and hide things. But I always thought that was a very masterful thing to do as well, is like knowing how to, hide things, I guess. But even like, at night, they're like, okay, well, let's maybe not do too many day scenes with dinosaurs, because we don't want to show it in broad daylight. Let's hide it in shadow. Let's throw a lot of rain over the shots to muddy up the I guess. Nowadays, obviously, it's a little bit easier because there's so much distortion. Even with streaming, you can kind of hide things with rain, kind of glitching up the shots and stuff. So, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think of there's a couple movies where it's just like there's one shot, maybe a handful of shots, where it's just like like just kind of a letdown because the movie would have been perfect otherwise.
Yeah.
With Jaws, I actually think of when they jump the shark onto the boat at the very end. I'm like, that's the only one that's kind of like.
No, I agree. Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I think there's, it's just a big doofy shark just going, and it just kind of sits there like a big turd, and it's kind of the way the mouth moves, and it does take you out of the movie. Even as a kid, you see it and you're like, oh, okay, that's not,
but it's funny because like right after that you have, I guess as a kid, I didn't really like right after that you have him being slowly eaten, like descending into the shark's mouth on the boat. And that's the part that I remembered as a kid, that's the part that's just like, oh my God.
Well. Yeah. Just that screaming and the blood. And you're like, oh, man, this movie's getting kind of dark, man.
Really messed up. But like, I also think of Alien and Aliens. With Alien, I would think it was actually a perfect movie if there weren't a few shots in there, right, with where it's just a dude in a suit. Like there's
100%.
Like with the when he's going down into the vents or whatever with the flamethrower, he's gonna and it's like one of the scariest scenes. But then I just watched the 4K
it looks
last winter or whatever, and it's just like it cuts to the alien. It's just a guy going with the hands and everything.
And it's a horrible looking shot. And and I will say, I'm so glad you brought that up too, because when you, even as a kid, that was one of those things where you look at it and you're like, really? That's what they decided to do with the, like, we know it's like, even as a kid, you're like, I know that's a guy in a suit. I know it's not, but even just the way, that's something you cut immediately. Just have him turn and look and just see it in his eyes. That's it. Yeah. He's there. It's just, but just the doofy hands. You could even see the chunky sausage fingers of the, that's another thing too, that I feel like it's kind of a lost art. And I'll say actually, like Nosferatu, I just saw, it was last year that came out, last December or whatever. That was a movie where obviously there's a lot of great stuff in that movie. But I feel like even the art of knowing, the fingers look too chunky with the prosthetics on the actor, even as cool as the makeup was in a lot of ways. And I really appreciated just something down to the anatomy of like how fingers look. Like fingers are not chunkier as they get like towards the end of the finger. And like, and I'm sure the guy that created the prosthetics did an amazing job, but for some reason they, in a close up, you really expose that little nuance and detail of anatomy. And you're like, man, this guy, one of the things about Nosferatu that was so iconic was how his fingers looked like almost like spider legs. And they were so in the shadows and things. And it was such a just aesthetically pleasing thing that's why it lasted the test of time. And even like the close-ups in Nosferatu, you see like, man, this guy's got like sausage fingers. So I don't know what this is. These don't look like giant spider legs coming at you.
Yeah.
And there's this primitive thing that a lot of directors, I don't know. It's a lost art to really get that right. And I know sometimes like it's a budget thing and they don't have time, but they had all money in the world to make that movie look amazing, even down to the iconic shot of it. And the reason why I bring up the hand thing and the fingers thing is because it's such an iconic shot of the shadow and the fingers and the nails on the wall that, I don't know, for me, I was just kind of, it's one of those things where it's just really disappointing. And it actually reminded me of that shot from Alien when the hands come out. And I'm just like,
yeah. It is the sausage
I'm
fingers.
nitpicky, obviously. I'm a very nitpicky person, but.
No, I think it's like those things are important to notice, because I think when you look at Alien versus Aliens, I feel like James Cameron totally knew, like, you could see it was just a dude in a suit, and like he knew how to just not show it as a dude in a suit. Like the close-ups on the head, like I don't think there's one shot in there where it's just like, oh, that's a dude in a suit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everything else is just amazing about that movie. I mean, there's so many things to like that. That's one of the things I don't think critics get or really understand about filmmakers even. Is that you have these situations where filmmakers are literally put in impossible situations almost every setup they get challenged with. And sometimes it's a money thing, sometimes it's just a time constraint thing or whatever. Sometimes it's just a creative thing. Sometimes creatively they just can't solve the problem that they're dealing with. And I think a lot of critics give a lot of filmmakers crap because they think they're just not capable of making something good. In a lot of ways, it's just, no, they just don't have, something's just not working in their favor. And that's okay. Like, I don't fault, Alien, Jaws, Nosferatu that much, but I am aware of those faults. I don't really, I'm not going to like shame the filmmaker about it either, but I think critics don't understand that. I think that, that problem, I think, or at least they're not very charitable to filmmakers. And I try to be as much as I can, without like, if there's a couple things I don't like about a movie, I'm still going to think it's an amazing movie and, want people to watch and stuff. But I think that's an important thing to point out too, that critics just don't seem to understand.
Yeah. What do you think's better, Alien or Aliens?
Oh man, that's good. I think Aliens is probably a more challenging movie to make. So I'd have to go with Aliens just because I think it's a more challenging movie to make, I would say. And I think I think all in all, it's probably a better movie just by a tad, I would say.
Yeah, I think so too. But it's honestly, and this is maybe just me being a little hypercritical. It is because of the sausage fingers, and it is because of the guy at the very end twirling, just a dude in a suit at the very end. And it's like there's maybe 5 shots where he could just like crop in and get rid of the fingers, or like just do something, and it would be like a perfect movie.
Absolutely.
But I'll have to do Aliens as well, I think.
Yeah.
So. What stories are you, as a storyteller, most drawn to telling?
I would say, my thing is, there's no real genre that I'm that particularly interested in, really. It's just kind of, I think it has to be something, I know this is really corny and cliche, but it really just has to be something I'm resonating with at the time I want to spend a year or two of my life to make it, right? Because I think that's really where it has to be. I think a lot of times, obviously, a story should be about something. In my opinion, I think filmmakers in general have kind of gotten away from stories being about things. I mean, people are still doing that. Obviously, that's the whole point of a story. But it's crazy how there are way too many filmmakers getting away from making movies about something, and I get really tired of hearing people excuse movies for not being about something and saying, oh, well, you got to use your imagination to find out the meaning. And it's like, well, if the filmmaker's not putting in that time at the beginning stage of writing the thing, why it's just, I could stare at a wall. I could stare at the wall in my room right now and ask myself that same, what is this wall about? And come up with all kinds of things. What the hell does that mean? Why am I watching? So I feel like you kind of have this agreement with your audience to say, I put in the time to make this about something. So when I present it to people and I have them pay money to come see it, it is about something. And I did put in that time and I have that respect for that audience. And so that's my thing. It really just has to be, it could be any genre. One of the reasons I kind of got into horror was just because obviously it's a very lucrative genre. As an independent filmmaker, you can kind of get in there and get exposure that way, but it's also just a really fun genre to play in. And I kind of wanted to, again, challenge myself in multiple multiple ways and kind of and do a story where I wasn't going to have to like request something so deep out of myself from a story perspective, that I wanted to kind of get back to the cinematography and the directing and sound design and things like that. I knew that genre at the time offered me more of that at the moment, so that's what made me gravitate more towards horror. But I initially, drama was always my thing starting out, but I realized the more I did drama, no one gave a shit about the things I was telling. So I was like, man, I have to kind of wake up here and sober myself up a little bit and do things that people are excited about, at least on the surface, to get them in the door to then reveal, oh, it's actually about this thing that you don't care about, to get them excited about what I'm trying to pitch them, I guess.
I 100% agree with you, because I see so many dramas coming through for the film festival, Spark of Madness Film Festival, where they're always about the same kind of political issues and stuff, and I want some excitement in a drama, or something. Like, I just need some form of excitement. So I totally agree.
Yeah,
with
you're not wrong to ask that. I think a lot of people, there's this kind of, and I think you get this in the fine arts world too. There's this kind of really, artists like to overanalyze things, and this they should. Like, I'm not kind of faulting them too much about it, but I think it's really easy to write everything off as, oh, it's just subjective. So, or I'm smarter than you, so you just don't get it, kind of thing. And there's always that kind of escape, and I feel like that's just a cop out, and that's the artist just being just really disrespectful to the audience. And for me, it's like, if you're making anything you're making any kind of art, you're really doing it. You should be doing it for an audience. Otherwise, why are you talking to me about it? It's kind of like, if you want, no one's saying you can't make art for yourself. The whole thing is, I'm making the art, so of course I'm going to do something I want to do. That's just by default, but you're really doing it for an audience. So, you should have them in mind. And anytime they criticize you, it shouldn't be an out to say, well, it's for me. It's my art. I did it for me. It's like, well, no, you're not. You're showing it in a public forum right now. So of course it's for an audience. So to me, I always thought that wasn't a good way to go about taking criticism and things like that.
Yeah. So when you talk about a story needing to be about something, are you talking about like it needs to have a moral argument?
I personally like the idea of having a moral argument. I know some stories you don't have to go maybe too deep there, but yeah, I think they should, at least, enough to where it's not like preachy, but there should be, I think as a writer anyway, you should have that in the back of your mind as you write a story. But not necessarily to the degree that we were maybe shoving a moral message down people's throat every scene. But yeah, I think there should be a moral argument there. I think that's the gold standard. I think as a writer, you should have that in mind before you figure out who your character is and the plot, and kind of start structuring it out and things like that. Otherwise, you're just going to be writing for 10, 15, 20 years and trying to figure out what your story is the long way. That I've been writing forever, and I can't stand writing as it is anyway. So I'm trying to save myself the hassle.
I hear you. Yeah, I think of I think this is a good topic, because I think of Jurassic Park versus Jurassic World Rebirth, right? So Jurassic Park, you have a moral argument in there to like not play God, and you can say there's like a discussion about chaos theory, right? But Jurassic World Rebirth, it's just like, okay, they're going to get this medicine, and then at the end they kind of almost turn it into like a socialized medicine type of moral argument, where they're just like, let's give the medicine to everybody. But it's just like, what was the rest of the movie about? Like, that's just like one small thing that you tacked on to say like it's about something. Yeah,
that's what it was. And that was their kind of lazy way of just saying, yeah, we're kind of trying to meet you halfway, but we don't really give a shit. And it's like, okay, that's fine. At least I appreciate that to a degree. But yeah, you're right. That's a perfect example. It's at the same time, some movies are built that way. Obviously Jurassic Park is one of those things where, you look at the first one, it's literally everything in one movie. And I think people have kind of, again, have gotten away from that gold standard of doing everything in one movie. And, obviously, like, you go to watch a Fast and Furious movie, you're not there's no moral argument there. It's just family, fucking cars racing and explosions. And that's great. Like, if that's your thing and you want to do that, there's no no issue with that. Just like we want to watch dinosaurs eat people, and also if we can kind of learn something or kind of bring something to light or think about something that's a little more interesting as well. Like why wouldn't you have all those things together? But yeah, that's a great example. And I would say I had fun watching that movie. But at the back of my mind, I'm going, this is not the first movie, and I'm okay with that. And I knew as soon as I get out theater, everyone's going to say exactly what they should be saying, and they should be, because we should still have that standard. But yeah, at the same time, you're absolutely turning your brain off, going, okay, I know exactly where this shit's going.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of they tried to market it as like a return to like the original movie, where it was just like it's shot on film, rebirth.
Yeah,
it's like Gareth maybe the storytelling is
big Spielberg guy, and
yeah. And then it's just like, oh, this is just another Jurassic World. So maybe I shouldn't have gone in like expecting Jurassic Park. I should have just went in expecting Fast and the Furious with dinosaurs or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I like the those little. There was when they try to attack, or they're trying to get the mosasaur or whatever. They're trying to hunt it down in the ocean and whatnot. That little Jaws sequence was kind of cool. But again, it's one of those things where that's a very seductive thing too. It's like you can see these little, obviously Spielbergian influence things, or like a scene from Jaws, and you could get lost in that and forget, no, this is a dumb movie. And at no point you're watching that. Any good filmmaker is watching that going, oh, this is just a dumb, cool Jaws scene, and that's great. But we're also, they're not advancing any of the sort of the character. The depth of the characters, or kind of massaging a theme out in any way that makes it even more interesting.
Yeah. So if we're saying that there should be a moral, probably in like a really good movie, what do you think of really abstract movies, like maybe some of David Lynch's more experimental stuff? Do you go in for the more experimental, abstract stuff where you're not really sure that he's actually saying something?
Yeah. See, that's a guy where I appreciate all the experimental stuff. I'm just like, well, this is really bizarre and abstract, and what the hell is he trying to say? And it's fun to kind of go there. But I think David Lynch, in a lot of ways, I think aesthetically, I think what he does is really fascinating to me, more than even the experimental stuff. Just because the experimental stuff gives him these sort of aesthetically bizarre images that I think I've always found really interesting and exciting. But yeah, I try not to waste my time trying to pick apart what the hell he's doing, because I don't even think he does. I think I actually would watch a lot of his interviews just to try to get into his mindset, to try to get some kind of clue into what the hell he's going for in some of his movies. And I think he literally sets out with the goal of going, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I think it's fun that way. I think the audience should kind of come up with their own conclusions to things. And I think that's okay, as long as that's the intention, and you're not trying to hide the ball with your audience afterwards, and you're going, oh, well, it's about something, you just don't get it. And I'm smart. You just don't get how smart I am. Like that's the weird thing I think the filmmakers do a lot, where David Lynch, I think, is a great example of that, where the other way, where he doesn't do that. He's actually, from the very beginning, he's going, no, I'm making a very bizarre movie, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And maybe you come up with some idea that I, didn't intend, and that's great too. And whereas, like, I think it should be said with even like a movie like, a Fast and the Furious sequel, like they know what they're doing. They're not trying to, make some David Lynch movie. They're trying to just show cars racing and people shooting each other. That's great for, in terms of the craft of stunts and things like that. I think it's awesome. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know if it's as much storytelling at that point as it is more just like an exciting spectacle, right? Yeah. So you write most of your own stuff, right?
Yep.
Were you a writer from like a young age?
I kind of dabbled in it a little bit. I think I've always had I think at the beginning, I was really intimidated by writing. I didn't know, I knew there were like screenwriting books and things. I'm talking like when I was really, really young. I always had the interest in telling stories and things, I think, was always there, but I never had anyone in my family that was a writer. They didn't know any. I was just so outside of the sphere of writing influence that I never really had the opportunity to even know if I was a writer really, but I was obviously loved telling stories and things like that. But as I got a little bit older, I realized, oh, this is such a daunting thing to even think about doing. I don't even know where to start. I don't even think the screenwriting books at that point. Sometimes maybe I would look up a screenwriting book and I always felt like these guys don't even know what the hell they're talking about half the time. And to me, I was like, well, then why the hell would I want to invest my time studying up on something that they don't even really understand that they're doing? And I think there are a lot of things they do know, but at the same time, to me, I always felt like the directing and the cinematography stuff was always more exciting. So I naturally, just in a really lazy way, just gravitated more towards that, the more sexy stuff of filmmaking. I think a lot of filmmakers do as well. And then I kind of realized, oh, I'm not making stories about anything. And I'm a storyteller, but I'm not actually a storyteller. I don't know how to tell the story to save my life. I know how to shoot them. I like the casting. I like the working with actors. I like the craftsmanship of all these other little things. And then when you get honest with yourself, you realize I have no idea how to tell a story. So maybe I should learn how to write one before I start directing one or trying to shoot one. So then writing became really interesting once I realized that was everything. And like I said, over the years, I kind of wrote little things here and there, but I didn't know anything about structure. I think a lot of people too always fall into that camp, rightfully so, of being more interested with character than plot too. Just because we're human beings and we relate to character more than we relate to a plot. Like, what the hell does that have to do with, who we are as people? What's a plot? So we always gravitate towards character. So at the early stages of my filmmaking career, I always kind of did more drama and character driven stuff. And I would kind of go, it's a character driven thing. If the plot has nothing to do, it's like, well, no, character and plot are one and the same. And they're not only equal, but it's literally the same thing. You're just being lazy and not really trying to understand what you're doing from a story perspective. And that's kind of the whole point. Just the character thing was, again, it's one of those things where I think a lot of filmmakers, they rely heavily on that. And I know, like, Scorsese's a big character guy. He's a big character over plot. And I always appreciated that. Don't get me wrong. But Spielberg was always more of like a plot guy. And then, so I kind of had these two dogs fighting in my head about character and plot, like I think most filmmakers do. And over time, I realized, no, they're both right. But then, I think, and I will say this too, I think Spielberg does better at both simultaneously than Scorsese does. But so I kind of only got into writing by necessity. And once I realized these stories aren't, working because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Yeah.
Did you ever think about directing anyone else's screenplays?
I always wanted to. I just never found a writer that gave me their material. And I was actually at the very beginning, just due to laziness, I was, not to say I wasn't passionate about what I was doing at the beginning. I just never found a writer that actually was, I moved out to LA a little while back, but then, you run into people, but they weren't even writing stuff because writing sucks. And I don't know, I just didn't know enough writers, I guess, but I just felt like no one, at least in our generation, people were so, what would be the right word to say it? Just our attention spans were so bad that no one wanted to sit down in a dark room and really get into the structure of things and do that. So I never had the opportunity to direct someone's stuff, but I always thought it'd be an interesting thing to do. But I think even then, I think I'd probably now more so, I'd gravitate more towards my own stuff just because I think I don't want to step on someone's toes too and make them feel that way about, I don't like the idea of giving someone notes about something without actually giving them solutions to what those notes are. Because a note is just something that it's another way of saying this is bad, go fix it. And then like, okay, cool. Well, how do I fix it? Because if I knew how to fix it, it'd be in the script. It'd be a solution in the script. But you'd say, well, I don't know how to. I'm just pointing it out. Like, well, then, I think you should offer some kind of a solution if you're going to really give someone notes. I think it's kind of one of those things that people do flippantly without realizing what they're really kind of doing. It's kind of rude in a way. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. Do you think the directors should write their own stuff? Because you hear some of the tours, the Tarantinos and the Christopher Nolans who write a lot of their own stuff. Do you believe in kind of that auteur theory where you should be writing your own stuff if you're trying to tell your own stories?
I think I'm kind of 50-50 on that. I think I think you should have at least written something that was good to show you have a firm grasp of what you're doing. But no, I mean, I think it's just up to the filmmaker. I think they can do whatever they feel like can be their best work, because really you're just trying to understand what kind of story, what the point of your story is ultimately. So if you can do it really any way you want. But yeah, I've never really had too many thoughts on that necessarily. I'm not like militaristic in that way at all. No, because yeah, like Tarantino's a guy where I appreciate his level of detail in his stories and how he really goes the extra mile in saying this character's from here and he knows these characters inside and out, and that reflects in the story at the end of the day, or at the end of the story rather, when he gets that part where there should be a point or there should be this arc, it's there without you having to guess what it is or what this character had to go through or what they overcame or whatever. And I think it's great to do that, because ultimately that's what you should be doing. But I don't think you have to. I wouldn't say you have to write your own stuff necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Do you outline when you write, or not so much with a short and more for a feature? How do you use outlines?
Yeah, so I would say on the outlining phase, my big thing is I do believe in knowing what your story is about in terms of a idea first, and then you should write your log line, write a couple sentences, whatever. Then you should write a brief synopsis, and then get to a 1 or 2, 3 page treatment even, and then you can start getting into the outlining phase, I would say. Because I would say maybe I go a little bit deeper and go really down to the quantum realm of the idea, really. And is that an idea I'm even interested in before I get into the log line and figuring out what's the best way to represent that idea in a simple a few sentences. And then if I can do that, who's that character and what does that mean? Is that a character I want to give a shit about for the duration of writing the thing? Is that plot interesting enough to where I can make it exciting enough to get people to want to come in and see that movie from a trailer point of view? And then from there, I kind of go into the outlining phase. But yeah, I guess you can say I'm a really big outliner too, though, because I think you should really know the story structure. I would say even more than the character stuff, because I think intuitively we understand character more than we'll ever understand story structure and plot. Actually, I went so deep into story structure for about 5 to 7 years because of that. I wanted to really understand the patterns in story structure, just so I can focus more on character stuff and get more excited about that again, and not have to have this nagging feeling like I don't know where this is going. I like the character, like the ideas, but I'm just meandering through this story world with this character. And that's cool for the character, but it's cool for me. But like, I know my audience is going to be looking at their watch in 5 minutes or so, or 10 minutes, and going, where the hell is this going? This guy doesn't know where. And I think the audience will feel that 5 to 10 minutes in if you don't know anything about the 3-act structure even. And I like the 3-act structure, but over the course of the 5 years, I kind of delved deep into story structure. I found I feel like it's actually, you can divide it any which way you want. It's not, obviously anyone knows anything about storytelling, it's not about how you divide it or whatever. But I feel like even the way people presented story structure to me, I always thought was just kind of weird, in that I won't reveal too much. But basically, you can, if you do, I'll say this, I don't want to give away too many of my little secrets and the way I structure stories, but divide your story up into 4 parts and think about it like that. It doesn't matter. You can divide it into 8 parts. It doesn't matter. But think about it in 4 parts. And if you think about it in 4 parts, think about a character that, whether it's a comedy or horror film, that should be on the chopping block at the end of every one of those 4 parts. And story structure actually becomes a lot more easier to understand and digest.
So what should be on the chopping block at the end of each of those?
So a character should be on the chopping block at the end of each one of those 4 acts. So like, and nothing, you actually gain more thinking about it like that. You're not throwing anything out in terms of what we do know about story structure, but you still get the midpoint and your midpoint reversal and your kind of, 3rd act, or rather end of act 2 sort of, everything goes to hell kind of moment. You get all these things still, but if you think about it in 4, And then more specifically, at the end of each one of those acts, if you have a character that's literally on a or not literally, but if they're on a chopping block, so to speak, what you do is you realize every story ultimately is about a character that is going to fail that first character at the end of that first fourth way of the story. I mean, literally up until the fourth way of any story. And then by the midpoint, he has a little bit more awareness to save that second character. Maybe not literal. In a horror movie, it's literal. But in a comedy, it's not going to be literal. It's going to be, they're just going to fail their girlfriend for the second time at that point in the story. And then maybe the third act or the third or 3/4 of the way through your story, it'll be a character he may save. That character might get fucked up really bad in a horror movie, let's say, but they get saved, but they're in poor shape by the end of that 3/4 way of the story. Then by the fourth act, that character is saved. And it's someone that's even more important to them in the terms of where they're going in their life for the better, actually. And this, whereas like Gladiator is a good example of this, where the first fourth way of the story literally is, I think Marcus Aurelius. He is basically a father figure to Maximus, and he gets killed because he doesn't want to take up the mantle. And he gets killed in a really gruesome way because he's so unenthused and unaware of what his true calling is, you could say. And so your main character has to fail that first character in the first fourth of your story in a really big way that essentially shows the audience's flaw and what's at stake literally every fourth of the way through the movie up until the end. And I think if you think of story structure like that, everything makes a lot more sense. But no one taught me that. It's just something you see when you look at every great movie, whether it's Jaws or a romantic comedy or whatever. You see that actual simple pattern in every story. Like The Lion King, the second character that I guess you could say in a sense, sort of the first character, but in every other story, Mufasa getting killed right before the midpoint is the second fourth of that, where he could have saved him kind of, he's literally watching that character die before his eyes. And then by the end of the movie, he saves his mom, who's essentially, or his, the pride or whatever. But you can throw in any random character in one of those slots, but it has to kind of make more. That's the raising of the stakes thing you always hear in these story structure seminars and things, is they raise the stake. Like, well, yeah, we know that, but like, what does it mean? Like, why, like, for example, why not kill off a character's parents at the second half of the movie versus the first half? Like, there has to be an answer to that question. And we have to know that as storytellers or writers, more specifically, like, why not kill off a character's girlfriend that he's wanting to be with for the rest of his life? Why not do that in the first half versus the second half? Well, because we know that as we grow older, we're looking for a girlfriend or to be a wife to grow old with and create a family with. So a girlfriend typically is left at the last fourth of that story for that reason, because it's more, that's the raising of the stakes. That's more important to most people's lives than, doesn't say we don't love our parents, but that's why parents typically get killed off in the first, or, metaphorically speaking, in the first half of their story for that reason. And I think that's kind of what I was trying to get at when I started writing, is I was trying to get those more broad truths to story structure. And I think that paid off a lot and made writing movies much, much easier when you know those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can pivot at this point, tie things together a little bit. Do you use AI in your writing?
No, I honestly, I would say if I use it at all, it's just to do grammar, because I'm not trying to, usually when I'm writing stuff, I'm just kind of blah, 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 blah. I'm not trying to sit there and like, oh, do I have a period there? Is there a comma? Because to me, it's just, I'm trying to, the medium actually of writing, I think, is actually very bad at relaying ideas. I think it's a very, it's kind of weird to say it's a primitive thing, but I think writing is a very horrible way to communicate ideas, and at least visual ideas. And I think if you're writing for the screen, you should know that every step of the way. So for me, I'm trying to write it out as much as I'm trying to do it in a way that's really fast, so I can kind of do draft after draft after draft. So if I do have to present it to somebody, I'll throw it through ChatGPT or whatever, just to get it in a form where it's a little more palatable for someone to process. But the processing is what I'm interested in, as opposed to asking ChatGPT to come up with a story idea, or hey, tell me what story structure. That it's not just not going to do you any favors there. And trust me, I've tried, and I'd be like, oh, maybe there's some insights here that it can give me that I don't know. And this is just the way my life works too. Sometimes I spent 5 years studying story structure, and then ChatGPT comes out right after I got out of that writing coma, and then everyone's like, oh, it's got all ChatGPT and AI and it's Grok and it's amazing and it can just write a script. Yeah, it can, but it's really, really shitty. And your audience is going to know that too, by the way. So you could, don't get me wrong, there are some things I think that you can learn from those things, but I think you have to take it with a grain of salt and kind of you got to cherry pick the things that you want it to help you with, and know why it's helping you with those things.
Yeah. Sometimes I use it as like like I use it like like I have this idiot friend I just want to bounce ideas off of because I have no one else to bounce ideas off of. Yeah. So I'm like what happens if like I want this to happen with this character, and they're like, oh well, maybe this could happen. I'm like, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. And then I like continue on writing. I don't know why I have to abuse somebody in my writing process, but
absolutely, man. Well, that's such a huge part of it. Like my wife, that's what I do with her all the time, and I harass her. I
like what do you think of this?
Yeah, and that's and that's another thing where I think the AI does do you a huge service. But at the same time, you also have to understand, and I'm sure every writer does. It's like it's not bullshitting you necessarily, but it is kind of for lack of a better word, it's just praising how much of an awesome writer you are every time you give it anything. So I think that could be very, very bad for writers if they don't know that. We all know it, but when you see, oh, this is great, I really loved how you did this, and that's not the truth. If you give it to an actual person, that's that they're going to say, this sucks, I'm not reading anymore. So I don't know what the hell you're doing. Why would you do that? That actually hits you. An AI chatbot is not going to do that for you. And I think that's what you're doing. That's the first step to getting it to an audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's very sycophantic right now, the ChatGPT. I think Sam Harris was joking about, like, if you could only like have a dial where you can crank up how critical it is, maybe that would be helpful. But even then, absolutely. It's just like, you don't know how to take criticism from something like ChatGPT, because it's just like, it's artificial criticism, you don't know if there's something actually wrong or not,
Yeah, no, you don't. No, and it's going to hide it from you too, because it wants you to keep, using it. So I'm sure as the programmers, programmed it that way. So yeah, it's not going to do you all the, I think it's so great for grammar. I think it's perfect for that. I mean, actually, when I don't want to say any names, but there were some, let's say, producers that just were terrified of the AI thing. And don't get me wrong, I think we all kind of were like, oh shit, how good is it going to be? And what does this really mean? Like, we all have that kind of anxiety about it to a degree, but a lot of people were just so upset, so angry with what was happening with the AI revolution and stuff. But they threw the baby out with the bathwater in the way that they don't realize, like, guys, this is such an amazing tool for grammar that, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but it does the lion's share of the work, where you'd have to sit there and burn several days, maybe a week, really going through there and like getting and the reality of it is, it's like, guys, this is not a novel. I'm not publishing the actual document anywhere. It's going to be translated to a visual medium. So even then, the grammar never really meant anything to me anyway. It was an obstacle. But I think writers never looked at it like an obstacle. They looked at it like a way to sort of tell people that they knew a lot about writing. It made them feel good. When they lost that, they realized that's all I had was my grammar Nazi ways. And it's like, that's okay, but that's not, you should be spending your time learning more about story structure than grammar and how sexy it looks on a page. Because maybe I get you want to get it to a producer and you want them to see that you put in the time on the writing it to a degree, but it doesn't do you any favors when you're going to translate it to a visual medium literally after you write it.
So how open are you about your use of AI in your films?
Oh yeah, I personally love it. I think I like, if I could be, the only reason I wouldn't be too transparent about it would just because I don't want people to know my tricks so that I can corner the market. But Yeah, I have no problem talking about it. I think it's a great tool. I think any filmmaker not using it is drinking the Kool-Aid, and you're actually falling victim to people like me that are not wanting you to get better at filmmaking. And I think and I don't think there's too many people like me necessarily, because I do love it so much, but I think there's more people that are scared and have so much anxiety about it because they're not strong enough filmmakers to take it and run with it and use it in ways that can benefit them. I think they feel like it's taking away their agency in a way, which is really bizarre to me. But I think a lot of those people are just haters, and they were going to be haters anyway. But this is just a perfect excuse for them to kind of shit on people that were always, I don't know, more interested in filmmaking. I guess I don't know. But to me, I think you should use. I guess I'll at least give away my philosophy on it. Rather, I would say, I think it should be used in a way as you should use AI as if you're a visual effects supervisor. So you look at any problem that a visual effects supervisor is going to look at, and you're going to say, okay, we can shoot this this way, but we need this stuff shot in camera for reference for my guys to go back in the studio with, and kind of to make sure we can really get that photorealistic quality. But we can only simulate and render things in such a way that, yeah, it's going to be great on the computer, but we don't know what that really looks like in the real world with all these little subtleties and nuances. So I think you got to look at the AI thing like it's a visual effects firm that you're hired to make your movie. So I don't think I would ever make a fully rendered AI movie, not yet anyway. It's just the technology is just not there, and anyone that thinks it is just hasn't done the research. Like most of these generators are doing 720p upscaled to 1080p, and if you think that looks good on a 32-inch monitor, I think you're going to be, and everything's going the way of being presented in 4K. In the theaters, obviously, are dying more and more each day. So if you think that's going to translate well, even if theaters are showing things in 2K, it's not necessarily a thing you want to invest your time in thinking it's going to be something that you do want to make a fully rendered AI movie with. So for me, I use it like, okay, I'm telling a story. I want to shoot it practically. I want the actors there because I love that. I love that part of it as a filmmaker. I love working with actors. I like kind of letting ideas evolve through my brain. I don't want the AI to take that from me. That's why I got into the gig to begin with. So I look at it more like, if I can't do something practically, I want to use CGI or AI or whatever to solve those problems for me. And I want the best result possible. And I also want it done in a really cheap way, in the cheapest way possible. So if AI gets me there, great. If CGI gets me there because the AI has limitations, then that's good too. I don't really care. I'm just trying to get the best result I can to get the audience to give a shit about how good the story is being told, so that they get the point of why I'm telling it to begin with.
Yeah. So when you're using AI for something like your short film, The Clayman, do you have a practical Clayman on set that you're filming, and then you can use that as reference later, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Initially when I did the test, I did because I actually wanted to do a fully practical monster, and I think I have no regrets about doing that. I think in a perfect world, if I executed it better, I may have just stuck with that. But for me, when I did these tests, I saw, okay, it looks cool. I was actually really happy with the result. But then once you realize there's another standard there where you could use that practical stuff you shot and use that as reference and feed that into the AI and rather adapt it for the AI, you now have a better looking AI shot that most filmmakers would just go, they would just type in a prompt and make me a Clayman monster. And it's like, well, it's going to look stupid, first of all. And if you don't know how to utilize it properly, you're not going to get the most out of it. You're not really in it for the right reasons. So like, if you're not in it for the creative understanding of what the tool's there for to begin with, you're not going to get a great result that people really go, holy, this looks good. So yeah, we actually shot it all practically. I thought it looked great. I was really happy with it. And then I actually did a premiere in my hometown, and my wife was telling me, I think you need something. I think you need a little more of a bombastic kind of a more climactic ending. And she was 100%. She was 100% right. It was just due to budget constraints and the timing of it, where I thought at the end, I'm like, I'm just going to show the monster and reveal, hey, the monster's alive, and that's just where we're going to end it. And the look on the character's face when he's seen what he created was really not what he intended, and that was kind of the point of the story. Again, if I can get a little more spectacle in there and get people to kind of walk away with a little more give a shit, I think it'll stick with them more. So it's just kind of one of those things where it worked out for the best. And I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, I can't do this obviously practically. What I shot is there. And another obviously benefit of AI is you can keep playing with it. You don't have to go back and reshoot stuff. I already shot all my practical stuff. So I've already done all the work of giving AI exactly what it needed to know what's going to, I've already created all those models, so to speak. So I just kind of added I used the AI to kind of take those practical shots. And I think, I would never use AI without that. And I think if I approached it the opposite way, it would look like complete crap. If I just went in there going, oh yeah, I'll just do it with AI and I'll let the AI figure it out. And it just would have looked like crap. It wouldn't have fit in, and just color grading your shots to fit in with your live action footage is just not going to cut it. I think if you have that standard there, and your audience does, you can trick yourself into thinking there's no standard there just because it's color graded to fit in with your footage. That's not good enough. And I think audiences know that. And the AI tools right now, man, they're not there yet to do a fully rendered AI movie, but they are there to do little shots here and there to solve things that CGI would have done so in the past. Actually, when I actually priced up some CG shots before I actually went this practical route. And obviously the quotes I was getting they're actually reasonable enough because I knew enough about, hey, I was going to shoot it practically anyway to give that footage to my CG guy. And he's actually worked on a couple Marvel movies and stuff. So I knew he could do it. It was just a matter of, what was worth the money to me. And I figured, I'd rather just put that money towards other places where I really needed it. And obviously it was a little too expensive. And I think people in the CG world, if they really hate AI so much, and trust me, I know a lot about After Effects and I've dabbled in Blender and stuff like anyone else, or even Cinema 4D. And it's just, I'm sorry. It's just, if you guys wanted it to not be this way, you should have found a better way to sell a CG product at a much affordable price point. And I'm not saying it's completely their fault, but that's just the reality of the market. And I tried it that way just so I didn't have to learn a new skill. I don't want to learn this AI stuff, man. It's not something I don't have the time. I felt like it was something I was kind of put in a corner about,
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to see how CG artists, if they just start using AI themselves and they start like, okay, well, this is, if I did it the CGI way, this is what it would cost. It would take this much time. If now I'm very familiar with these AI tools and I can kick something out really quickly and at this discounted price, then they just have a smaller, quicker product that they're and more of those. So it'll be interesting to see how things kind of adapt.
Yeah.
What if you don't mind me asking, what software do you use to take a practical shot and upload it and animate it? And is it prompt based?
Yeah, so I use Kling to do the AI stuff from the obviously practical footage I had, and then I'll take it back. I'll say once I shot it, what I did was I realized some of or rather, this is how it actually kind of worked out too. Sometimes there's maybe one shot where it worked out great, where I was like, oh, I don't have to upscale this footage in a way where I need it. But I think the way it worked out was I thought I was just going to be that easy. I'll just take the live action shot I had of the Clayman, and then I'll just feed the image into Kling, prompt it real quick, and maybe 5 renderings of the video. I'll get the animation I wanted or the subtlety that I wanted or whatever. And that's just not the way it worked. What had happened was I did that and I realized, I need a different angle or whatever. And this is a little bit before the tools kind of got there where we could the character consistency was there. But that's another thing too. If it's a human being, the character consistency thing works. If it's a Clayman thing you custom made, it doesn't really quite work. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't, or it fails to do things in a way that looks good. So I actually had to take that, those live action shots, and then I had to upload them into Photoshop and then do all the tweaking in Photoshop in a still image form first. And then I had to upscale that because you kind of muddy down the resolution and things like that. So I had to re-upscale that with think I used Magnific and Kriya AI to upscale that to like 4K or whatever, just so I knew I wasn't losing resolution when I went back into Kling to get it animated. And I think the secret sauce there is you got to be willing to spend a little bit of money. You're still spending money with AI. It's not, obviously, it's not something that you just wave a magic wand at and you just get these great results. You got to spend money to get those results. And you got to be you got to know what to look for too. And I knew I was looking for nuance. I wasn't looking for crazy over the top animation that would break the believability of it. So AI does that a lot. It oversells things and it makes it, sometimes you get glitches, sometimes it messes up fingers, and it's getting better at that actually. But over animating things, I think, breaks a lot of these sort of effects. So what I did was each one of those shots that was in the short film was probably about 100 shots I went through that I could pick apart and say, yeah, the way that's moving like that looks like crap. That's not selling it, or that's not going to look good once I have to re-upscale this to 4K or whatever. And because I shot it on anamorphic lenses, sometimes the bokeh would be round or whatever. And maybe I had to go back into After Effects and recomp in oval bokeh in the background or something, or sell an effect harder by bringing that Kling video into After Effects and comping something in or comping something out or whatever. So there's a lot of that.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of work. I appreciate you being transparent about the software, because whenever you see those on Instagram and TikTok, you see the AI kind of horror stuff on there a lot. And everybody's like, how did you do this? Tell me how. And they're like, no. And like,
I get it, man. It's like, and I think even saying that out loud, it's something where ultimately it's going to be on the person to sit there and want to put in the time and really have the eye to say, because you and I, we talk about that shot in Alien. Like, you and I know that we have the eye. Other people might not have the eye. So you also have to have the idea in your head that not everyone is going to be able to necessarily see what you're seeing to get those results. And that's not I'm not trying to be a gatekeeper in that way either. I guess it is a competitive thing too. So I want to help people as much as I can, but at the same time, I don't want to, throw too much out there and make people sort of be too competitive either. But at the same time, if there's like a young filmmaker that's like, hey man, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing, I'm going to help them out. I'm not trying to, do anything like that. But yeah, absolutely. I do see some of these guys and they're like, they don't give you anything. It's like, all right, dude, that's real cool.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. We're all in this together. Cool. Got it.
Yeah. So with practical effects and CGI, I always think of instances where I really hate CGI or when I can really tell that it's fake and they're trying to sell it that it's real. So it's something like, I always bring up the movie Beast with Idris Elba, and it's a CGI lion the whole time. And that really took me out of it, because at the end, he's just like pretend wrestling this CGI animal. Where I'm just like, all right, some practical effects, like a real lion every now and then or something.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Might be good. But so that's how I feel about CGI. Do you think there's any difference with the AI stuff? Do you think we're going to be less able to tell that it's fake, that it's going to take us out of the story less often than CGI does on average? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely going to get much better. I would think that, but I would say it's going to go through the same evolution as CGI did. I think, and it's funny because you see the same thing. Anyone that knows anything about the history of CGI knows this is exactly what happened with CGI. But yeah, I think it's obviously going to keep getting better. But I think what's going to happen is I think you're going to lose the nuance and the direction, at least at this first half of its life cycle. You're going to see directors overutilizing, just like people overutilize green screen. Remember when green screen was the thing? Everyone was, I was growing up when that was happening, so I was never necessarily in that, but I remember seeing it everywhere going like, that's clearly green screen. Why would you think you were going to be able to pull that off? It's just not there yet. You don't have the time, budget, or, so that's what's happening right now with AI. Everyone's got a green screen now, and everyone's shooting this crap with the green screen. And it's like, hey, I'm happy you got a green screen, and I'm glad you're learning, but it looks like crap. And you should still hold those standards to such a high place where you go, this is not good. I'm not going to release this. So I'm going to use another tool to get me there. But I think obviously it's going to get a lot better. And I think, but I do think, to your point about Beast, and I did like that movie, but I completely agree with you. They overutilized that CG. And there were a lot of good looking shots in that movie of those lines, but they broke the effect by going, oh, we're going to have this lion attack Idris Elba at the end of this movie. The third act's going to be this crazy scene. Like, yeah, and don't get me wrong, technically it was probably great for the artists that worked on it. They probably worked really hard, but the director failed that movie in a big way, where he could have been like, no, we can afford to buy, or at least build the hands or the paws of the lion, and in the close-ups or something, you know what I mean? You could have, just to give me a little more realism, because even shadows, the CG guys know shadows are hard to do on live action. It's insanely hard. So in audiences, you can actually see them not working correctly. The way shadows, for some reason, we just can't get shadows right. We can get all these other things, we can simulate the hell out of it. But when you blend CG and live action together, that's just, you see the seams real obviously. So yeah, no, just that one little thing alone would have been great.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with CGI, I think, and with AI generated stuff, it's the physics. It's just like there's always something, like humans are so good, because we evolved over millions of years to recognize perceiving reality. And so when we see something moving that's just not right, we can see it immediately. But in terms of, maybe I can ask you this, the textures, for some reason, in AI generated stuff always seem so much better, like they're harvested from like real textures or something. They always look realer to me than something CGI generated. Is that a thing?
I think I would agree to a point. I think there's I guess it kind of, I would say like a case by case basis. I guess it kind of depends on, but I would say, there's some things where I said, there's one thing I kind of do where I kind of have a bit of a workflow. That's one thing I won't reveal, but there's a lot of, and I think it's a how do you say, it's not a rendering issue necessarily, but it's really just more of like an upscaling problem. But for sure. It's just like with the early CG, everything looks too smooth because we just don't have the processing power to get that fidelity in there because of the way things work out, I think, in the rendering. But I think it's more of a issue of cost for the guys that actually are creating these, I guess, data centers to render things. But I think it's definitely there now. It's in the sense that it's just a matter of who wants to be the person to put up an insane amount of money to render. Like most people in LA right now, like they've got these rendering farms and teams of hundreds of guys working on a facility where they can render things out for their movies independent of these bigger tech companies and things. So they're definitely there. It's just a matter of who has the, what's economic, I guess, for the company that's going to produce those shots. Yeah.
So what do you think of, we talked a little bit earlier about the job market, but what do you think is going to happen to like junior editors, for example? Because there's all this AI now that's getting rid of the kind of those junior editors who historically just kind of organize the clips and that kind of stuff, right? So where do you see kind of the job market for these jobs that are going away, like some CGI artists and junior editors and that kind of stuff?
I would say they're definitely going away a lot faster than most things, because I think, and no disrespect to those guys, I've been there myself. I'm and it sucks because those are really good paying gigs, and when you get good at something, you can do it quicker and make more money. So it sucks in that front. But I think they're going away really quick. No doubt about it. Because that's something AI does. It takes the lion's share of the jobs that no one really cares about and that don't quite take a lot of abstract reasoning to do. And I wouldn't even go as far as saying AI is going to be, it's not going to get to a point where it has the ability to think necessarily like a human being. It's going to emulate it in such a realistic way where it's going to feel like that. But I don't think it's going to get to the point where it's necessarily thinking like a human being.
We hope not. It almost feels like an eventuality. I know there's a lot of people who think we're, I don't know, a decade away from general intelligence. my kind of thinking is that if you're in one of those jobs like CGI artist or whatever, or something especially like junior editor, when you were just organizing
Yeah.
stuff into bins, is to maybe, what do you think about just falling back on more of the things that, like you were saying, require abstract thought, like maybe fall back more on the writing aspect, and you're going to have to start picking up more
Yeah.
more of those philosophical
Yeah. Yeah.
skills.
No, I think, and honestly, to your point too, just to piggyback off that a little bit more, I think, so I think a lot of people, when they say it's not going to think like a human being, what they really mean is they're scared to say it's not going to be able to outthink them. And I'm not saying it's already at a point where it's outthinking everybody, but outthinking somebody, being faster, is different than, I think, being like intelligent. I think that's kind of what we're talking about, but not ultimately. The programmer is the one programming the AI, and I think that's kind of a closer way to get to what I'm kind of trying to get at, I guess. But I think it's going to keep processing things at a speed that just becomes, it's always going to, I think there's going to be an exponential curve. I think we haven't even hit that yet. I think, and then it will plateau, and then we're going to realize, okay, here's where the cap, just like with CGI, it was the same thing. Everyone thought it was just going to be this, the mountain was just going to keep going, and then it just had plateaued. And then it was like, okay, yeah, it can do these great things, but ultimately we're the ones creating the CGI. It's the same thing with AI. It's just a much more convenient form of CG. I mean, technically, rudimentary forms of AI were actually in CG software in the 90s, or early 90s rather. They just never furthered the development of it because they needed more customized tools, I guess you could say, within the software. They didn't really, and obviously it was a thing of creativity. They just didn't really say, well, why not just put it into this sort of little area and blow that up versus blow up this other area of the field. But AI was always around. It was just a matter of us, and also not having the ability for the processing power just wasn't there. But I do think we are going to get to a point where we're just not going to be able to process things to the degree of being, because it is creative. Like, I'm not even putting like a too big of a spotlight on creativity being this big, thing that it can achieve. I think it's achieving it right now. It's just the thing that comes before creativity is just intent. Like, who cares about an AI thing doing something? Now, people are like, there's companies developing all kinds of programs and things to create TV shows, and where you can just sit down. But ultimately, AI is not going to tell us or reveal anything to us that we don't already know, because we already did it in the way we designed it. So it's already in there. So just by the nature of that relationship, it's not telling us anything we already know, because we already did that. So it might be able to render things at an insanely fast speed and take over other things we already have that do it slower. But I don't think it's going to get to the point where it's going, hey guys, did you guys know about this thing that you didn't program it? Like, well, no. And you don't either, because we didn't program you to get there. Because that's, but it's going to help us piggyback off of that and say, hey, now that we can process all these things, we can kind of further the study of this, and we'll reveal that to ourselves with those in conjunction, I think, with that technology. But yeah.
So one big issue with AI that people always bring up is that it's trained off of artists' work without their consent. Do you think there's an issue there, like an ethical issue?
Yeah, I think there is. I think like with a lot of things, like, we have to kind of see, and I don't even know if it's going to be born of anything that's kind of, well-intentioned. I think a lot of people are just, they want people to put caps on the speed in which this thing's progressing, because they just don't want their jobs taken. So I think that's, which is, it's whatever. But yeah, I think there are ethical implications there, obviously. Like, right, like if I make something, I would hate to have someone kind of recreate something I did and like literally see, oh, that's literally a shot I made, and all they did was just kind of remix it. Well, that's literally my shot. So I think when we can objectify it that way, and we can see it's literally 90% mine, yeah, I think there should be some obvious limitations, just like anything else. But at the same time, like, that's kind of what we're doing anyway. Like, I would say more so, and a lot of, or maybe not more so, but we do a lot of that same thing. We're always constantly stealing from other people, whether you know it or not. Subconsciously, everything I'm seeing right now, I'm actually obviously I'm putting into my memory bank so that when I go create something again, this is now in my AI software to remix. So I'm already doing that. It's just where obviously it gets to a point where you should realize you need to keep remixing before, to a point where it becomes your own. Is, does that look like someone else's work that I just saw? If I'm conscious enough to know everything I saw from some artists I was studying because I really admire their work, I don't want to rip them off, but I am actually influenced in ripping them off to some degree. It's just, to what level am I willing to rip them off without them knowing it, I think is, and them not knowing it for their benefit too. I think that's kind of where everyone should be trying to, I think that's what people are trying to get at. And that's what we should strive to be, is just try to say, hey, I'm influenced by this guy's work, but at the same time, I'm not, if that looks like his work and other people collectively say that's literally that guy's work, then yeah, I'm stealing. That's not something that should be okay. But yeah, we do that automatically, and we never stop to think about that too much. But yeah, the AI software is just making it more obvious to us. That's exactly how we think too and create.
Yeah, that's interesting. So do you think that those AI companies should be compelled to disclose which artists they trained off of?
I honestly, I would say no. I would say I don't think they should be. I think they're free to. They should be free to do that. I don't think they have to. I think if an artist, maybe there's something in the near future where anytime you create something, you put like a digital stamp or a lock on it to say, hey, if you're going to use this, you at least have to disclose to me in some form that you're using this to be trained. But I don't think they have to necessarily disclose, maybe like disclose to the public that they're doing that. But I think privately, I like the idea, but I could be wrong. I mean, I think if you put something out there in the public, I mean, you're that's like you stepping outside your house and just walking around. Whatever you put out there is what people, if people can see it with their eyeballs, in other words, it's not up to you to like go into their mind and remove that memory from them. That's now their memory. So I think, if we can define what that really means to people, really, I mean, I think that's kind of the way it's probably going to go, is that people are going to have some form of that. It's going to be, if I can see it with my two eyes and it's in the public space, that's mine. And I shouldn't have to reveal to you that, you're my influence for that and that I saw your work. I think, anytime I create something, can you imagine a world where we have to disclose everything you've ever seen, ever? Because now everyone can play that game. Everyone can say, well, you saw my house. And when you painted a picture of a house, you better credit me in the house I own. That's the structure of a house that you went with for this little shot you did in your movie. And it's like, that's not, so I think if you take it to that logical extreme, I think you can find out where that kind of breaks down and how it's probably not the best way to go forward.
Interesting. So you're kind of thinking that AI companies should maybe have the same kind of allowances as artists who, artists are influenced by work. Why can't AI companies be influenced by work if it's out in the public eye?
Yeah. As long as it's not, now I think they should be held to the same standard as anyone else, as the individual, if they get caught literally taking an image. Because a lot of times people, if they're using like a generator or something, they don't know what was being fed in that machine. So someone might actually indirectly rip someone off without even knowing it. So but it is that company's ass if they reproduce something that's not reproduced. It's actually just accidentally, let's say it goes through the grinder, but it's literally a shot from Alien. And then now they use it in their work and they're like, oh, I've got it from a generator. Well, it's like, yeah, now you're not at fault because you didn't know that, because I don't know who hasn't seen Alien, but maybe some kid that's never seen Alien before, that's now in their movie. I don't think they should be at fault for that. I think the company should, because they need to work really hard at knowing that whatever we do feed into our generator, it has to be remixed in a way where it's not being, the output is not a 1-to-1 copy, but it should be like a, whatever the ratio, 50% that thing, but 50% our remixing process or whatever.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. In our heads right now. We're doing that in our heads right now. And we create things just in the same exact way. Yet no one's coming at an individual with that same level of scrutiny and whatnot.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens between Disney and Midjourney, right? Because there's that lawsuit going on where I guess Midjourney, they can crank out pictures of Mickey Mouse and Disney's probably not on board with that. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So
fun to watch.
When you use AI in a piece of work, do you worry because there's so much hate and backlash, against AI, that it's going to affect how your audience sees the work?
Oh, big time. Yeah. I can't. Yeah, it's. I wouldn't say it's terrifying because I don't value most people's opinions about much anyway. So, but yeah, no, it is. It's definitely there because you're thinking, okay, most people will just write it off. All the hard work I did, all the creativity, all the kind of unique workflows that I had to kind of create to get some of those results. So yeah, it's definitely there. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. At the same time, I would say these are the same people that I design movie posters, and one of the things I did, I've been designing movie posters and doing art since I was literally the minute I could grab a pencil or a paintbrush or a sculpting tool, I was doing that, and I mastered or tried to master that as much as I could, not knowing what it was going to result to if I put that out in the world now and people go, oh, that's AI. It's just like all this work I've done means nothing to anybody now. It's literally it's worth nothing in that context where people will just assume everything's AI anyway. So now I still need all the skills because I need the nuance from that, where if I go to create something that's unique to me, I have to develop things so that it is true that I created this with or without AI or whatever. But it's funny to me that I've got some friends of mine that are CG artists, and they'll work on a VFX shot for 3-6 months or something sometimes. And they go, hey guys, check this out. They'll be on a forum and like, check out this shot I did. Look at the animation in this or whatever. And someone will just go, oh yeah, no, they don't believe it. They think he's full of shit and he's just trying to, get some clout or whatever. And a lot of people are trying to do exactly that. And they pretend like it's a CG shot or whatever. And it's just as infuriating to them to know that that's what's happening. So I also keep that in the back of my mind when I do something, that you're going to have people that can't even tell the difference anyway, or they don't know you to know if they can trust you. So you have these two things working against you anyway. And so why even really fight it or care to think you can stop that sort of hatred that's coming your way anyway,
So to kind of sum up this discussion, when is AI okay in art, and when do you think it's not okay?
I would say it's not okay if it doesn't get you the result you intended, is what I would go with. I think if it's, it could be something where if you want to render a human being and you want to do something that's realistic and people go, yeah, that looks like crap, that's not real. Yeah, then that's not okay. But in terms of ethically, maybe you're taking someone's likeness and you don't have their permission. I think that's not okay. I think that's something that, in the same way that if you didn't go get their permission to shoot something and you're lying to people about it, you're saying, oh yeah, I got Tom Cruise to be in my short film this weekend, check it out. That's not Tom Cruise. And we all know you're full of shit, but at the same time, it's you're putting that out in the world where most people that maybe that maybe don't have that much common sense, that will think Tom Cruise is in your short film, and you're having him say crazy things that are hurting his reputation. That's not okay. I think that's probably one of the only ways I would say that's, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's not okay.
Interesting. So with me, I kind of fall in the camp where I think if you have a vision, like you're picturing it in your head, and then you use AI to execute it, right, to capture it.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's just like bypassing a CGI artist or whatever, or bypassing the practical effects. Like I still might prefer practical effects because there's little unexpected things that might pop up. But but I am uncomfortable with somebody saying I wrote this short story when they could have. Maybe they didn't have that short story in their head, and it wasn't their story to begin with, and they just they did ask AI. So do you think it's do you agree with that? Do you think that it's like that the artist needs to have intention and vision, and then they can use AI as a tool? Or do you think that you can just, this is my work, and it's just like some result of a crappy chat GPT prompt?
Yeah, no, I think, I love that question because it's a really interesting question in the sense that I think ultimately people are going to find out it sucks anyway. So they're going to say, oh, at least there's going to be a premium on another product that is unique to someone. That is always going to beat that product. I don't think, I mean, obviously I'm annoyed beyond belief that there's going to be, or there already is, an onslaught of AI slop that's going to dominate the market. And it just makes it even harder for people that did put in the time and energy to create a good piece of art to rise to the top above that. So it's infuriating to know that's what the climate is right now. But I think they should be able to use any tool they want, how they want, as long as they're not infringing upon someone else's rights. So like in the same way that, yeah, because I do like that you brought up, like, let's say someone painted a picture of Tom Cruise, right? And they go to Venice Beach and they want to sell that picture of Tom Cruise that they painted. We all know that that's a picture of Tom Cruise that is not Tom Cruise. He's not in the painting. He's not doing anything that no one would think that Tom Cruise is doing himself. It's literally a picture of Tom Cruise that someone painted. It's not Tom Cruise. Whereas if you said, well, Tom Cruise is in my short film and he's doing these crazy lewd scenes that could be damaging your website, we all know, hey, because most people can't distinguish the difference between that's Tom Cruise in a painting versus that might actually been Tom Cruise in that person's short film. And maybe that guy was a relative of Tom Cruise and Tom Cruise did him a favor one weekend. And that guy lives in LA and maybe he knows Tom Cruise. So I think it just comes down to that thing is ultimately that should be your North Star to figure out if it's okay or not. Is that, I think, that idea. But yeah, I think they should be able to use whatever tools they want, as long as it doesn't, you don't go to that territory of possibly fooling someone that it could have been Tom Cruise.
So, but if you have like an artist who says, I'm a painter, I'm an artist, and all they've done is, they used an AI to generate a painting of Tom Cruise, and then they sent it off to get printed at a paint shop or something. Yeah. Can you call them a painter at that point?
I would say no. Now, maybe you could say, I'm okay with the devil's advocate saying that, oh, well, technically, I mean, he did make a painting. It's like, well, we all know the degree of making a painting is not making a painting. We know that by painting, we mean you took a paintbrush, you dipped it in some paint, and you actually used your mind to render that out. So yeah, but that's the thing. Most artists know that, and most people know that too, I would say. So maybe most people understand that concept, but there's also a lot of people, or maybe a strong majority, that can be fooled into thinking that person's a painter. But those people, I'm not particularly interested in their opinion on anything anyway. So I think you let the market dictate that slot being put in its place, because we all, I think, ultimately know that guy's not a painter. It's just a matter of how many people are we willing to let him fool to think he's a painter. And yeah, it's annoying, but that's not, it doesn't make me lose any sleep at night necessarily.
I have a friend who's a writer, but he has a lot of friends who are writers who use AI to write whole chapters based off prompts and stuff. And I feel like that's kind of a weird area for me, where it's just like, if you had the vision for exactly what you wanted in that chapter, then you would just write the chapter. The prompt is going to be almost as long as the chapter, Yeah,
exactly. Literally. Yeah. And that's the thing too, because it's like, at what point does the prompter stop and the AI art, quote unquote, begins? Like, it's kind of a mix. So that's equivalent to saying, I wrote something with a buddy of mine, and now people assume it's a 50-50 split. The reality was I made him do 99% of the work, but now I'm a writer, and we would have had no problem with me being considered a 50-50 partner in that exchange. But it's a good thing to bring up, because ultimately he's not writing that depending on how much work he does or doesn't do in that relationship. So yeah, he's not really a writer. I mean, but he is writing, but he's not a writer, so, but yeah, no, I can't, and by the way, I'm not even trying to make a case for people getting away with doing shitty work and letting AI, and robbing the AI of its credit. I think it's really annoying, and those people know exactly what they're doing, but most of the time those people fold anyway, whenever the real pressure is on. Like, give that person $100 million and turn the air conditioning off and see how good of a movie they make. They're going to have a horrible time, and they'll probably get fired before they get through the first half of their day. So yeah, like I get really annoyed at people that do that. I don't think it's something that I don't think something that should be encouraged. And I think people that do have the right response to that, people are naturally really frustrated with those people. And I think we're going to keep seeing more of that pushback from other artists to shame them into, revealing the truth of how they created their art. In the same way that if I said I was a 50-50 writer, or I had a co-writer on something and I acted like I did half the work, when it's assumed I did half the work, but the reality was the co-writer came out and just said, "Oh no, Bryan just had me do the script and just pretended like I, was a 50-50 partner." So, it's the same relationship, but people like that weren't even really called out back then for that stuff anyway. We just kind of got on with our lives and nothing happened. It's the same thing now with AI. It's not a human being co-writer. It's an AI co-writer, but because AI is maybe better and they can be more productive, it's that conversation's brought to the forefront now because we see more of these weasels doing stuff like that. So it's pissing off more people, but it's the same relationship. And rightfully so. I think people should be really pissed off and annoyed about that.
Yeah, I hear you. So we have a film festival here, right? The Spark of Madness Film Festival. How do you think film festivals should look at films that have AI? Do you think they should? I know there's some out there that filter them out entirely. How do you think a film festival should look at a piece of art that uses AI?
I would say it should look at it in a way where it looks at visual effects, right? I would say in the same way if someone did a whole visual effects movie, it should be a visual effects movie. If it's a live action movie where they use a little bit of VFX, for example, like the Clayman, it should be something that is looked at like a visual effect versus a removal of authorship, I guess you could say. I think that it should just be looked at the same way CGI is looked at. I think the thing with AI is that it's just a more convenient form of CGI. It's literally CGI. It's just a more convenient, faster, productive version of it. But at the same time, we can go a little bit deeper back to what we were talking about earlier and say that, let's say someone created a whole AI movie, or let's say a short film, rather, 10-minute AI short film. They didn't even write it. They just prompted it and said, write me this, write me some slop. And now I'm going to go render it all with a cling or whatever. I don't think they should be looked at in the same way that another person did a 10-minute live action film when they had actors and they had more. Now, I'm not even saying that you're going to get the same result. Maybe that AI film is much better than the live action. I think it still should be based on merit. If that AI film is better, then that's really unfortunate for the guy that did the live action short film. And I think it should be looked at and studied and understood, because all that's going to do is push the storyteller to be better anyway. And we should say, ultimately, we're just trying to create better stories. We're storytellers. So we should have this gold standard of the best story will win, period. I don't care if it's a human being or an AI doing it. It should be about the story. Ultimately, is the story good? Maybe it sucks in a lot of ways, but maybe it is just better than the live action version. I think it ultimately has to come down to merit. Even if the time we have to go through is going to be very painful, and realize most people don't know how to tell a good story, even if it's done in live action with other people. I think it's just a growing pain we have to kind of deal with.
So do you think you would have a preference for human work? Like you were just saying, like if you had something like pretty much AI generated, right? But it's like a damn good story and it looks great. Versus something that's mediocre. Yeah. Are you going to have a preference for the human made work still? Or are you going to just be like, the AI is, I would rather watch this movie?
Yeah, I think it has to be, it just has to be about what the story is about, right? It's like, if I find out a minute in that the live action story is not going anywhere, it could be done better in every other way, but if it's not doing that properly, but the AI version is like that story or form of storytelling rather is better, because at least they got the heart of what storytelling is about, and maybe the cinematography sucks or the prompts aren't really that consistent. I'm going to actually be more interested in that, just because I'm trying to get to something more interesting and truthful about life, and that's what's, I think, the meat and potatoes of why we do it. But me personally, as a filmmaker, I do gravitate more towards live action, just because it's literally more real. So it's just more relatable. So I can't undo that thing that's happening in my head to think and have a premium on that. So yeah, I definitely gravitate more towards live action. And I will say, just even like I said, even now, you have more control as a filmmaker over live action than you do AI. And the AI can kind of get you out of some spots that maybe live action can't get you, just like CGI could. But I think I love live action stuff more than AI, 100%.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about documentary now too, where it's just like, even with fiction, if the writing is, who knows if it's AI or whatever, but documentary, it's like most, it's stuff happening in real life. So there's not a lot of AI that can.
That's a great point. It's not, because you watch a documentary, you're not looking at the cinematography. So sometimes they do a good job. They put a softbox up and they got soft shadows and it looks great. But I'm not in there for the cinematography, unless I was in there for the cinematography, then I'm judging it on that alone. But yeah, ultimately it's like, what is this documentary about? I don't care how they had to shoot it. Just give me the information. And that's what I'm after. And I think that's a great point.
Where do you see, this is kind of a final wrap up question. Where do you see indie film going in like the next 10 years?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's going to go, obviously, not to keep hitting on the AI thing, it's definitely going to go the way of AI. I think people are going to get more comfortable with it. I think this spell that a lot of haters have casted on people using AI is going to go away real quick, because people are going to have no other choice but to compete. And if you want to compete, it's like steroids in jiu-jitsu right now. If you want to compete at the highest level, unfortunately for you, if that athletic commission doesn't test for steroids, guess what? You better be taking steroids if you want to compete. And now it doesn't mean you don't need to know anything about the technique. You need to know technique almost as much as, if not more, than the next guy. You're both equally as strong. But the technique is ultimately the thing that's gonna, because again, you can't just keep taking steroids until you explode or you have a heart attack. But the technique is something that it's an infinite well to draw upon. But you better be at least equally strong as your opponent on a physical level. But the technique can be an indefinite deep well to pull from that will give you that advantage. But I think the baseline has to be there. Just like with AI, I think it's just, if you want to be competitive, you want to tell more stories, and you want to learn, I think, ultimately how to tell better stories. You're going to have to use AI, whether you like it or not, just because it's going to allow you to massage those muscles and just work out those muscles, I think, and get more films in front of an audience for you to get feedback, just like we do with writing. You give it to a friend and they go, "This is crap. What? You spent 10 months doing this. Why didn't you give this to me a month after you started writing this? I could have saved you 9 months." So you're going to learn quicker, I think, when you do that. But I think AI helps you be more productive. And I think people are going to realize the productivity AI allows you is what's going to give you that speed, I think, to grow. And they won't be able to help themselves, even the haters, to start utilizing it.
Yeah, give you an edge, or at least keep up with the people who are using it.
And it's also too, by the way, it's going to show you, ultimately what matters in storytelling. I think. I mean, more specifically, I think people forget that no one really knows what the hell they're doing on a storytelling front. We're all kind of learning as we go. I mean, even from a writing standpoint, where I don't have all the answers. I know other people don't, but I know they're out there. But we got to discover them together. And I think utilizing AI is going to remove some of the fog there. It's going to maybe you think, because I think a lot of people do think good storytelling is actually just shooting a movie in a very pretty way. And it's not the case at all. Like for example, good cinematography is not what's in front of the camera. It's how you move that camera in relationship to what your story requires you to do to get an emotion or to sell an idea to somebody. It's in the blocking of moving your camera. It's how you move your actors through the space. That's great cinematography. Obviously, you don't want to have your camera be underexposed or overexposed too. Like there's that craftsmanship there. But I think with AI, I think the more they utilize it, they're going to realize, I got this beautiful looking movie, and no one seems to give a shit about it. Why is that? And it's gonna help them, I think, remove that out of the equation, and they're going to be forced to go, well, I need to start writing, and then they'll go to the AI software and they're going to realize it's not going to have all the answers. It's just going to be a grammar checking machine for you, and you're going to be left with the same problem. How do I tell a story? What is story structure? You're still going to have the same issues, but it's going to, I think, maybe bring better filmmaking out of people, whether they know it or not indirectly.
I think that's great. So, Bryan Lewandowski, how can people reach out to you or find your work?
So just on Facebook or Instagram at Bryan W. Lewandowski. So actually we're on Crypt TV, the Clayman, on October 3rd as well. But yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on, man. I don't get to talk about this stuff a lot with most people, and sometimes I get the eyes look like, oh, what the hell are you talking about? But I really appreciate the conversation, man. And I look forward to the film festival. It looks amazing.
It's gonna be cool, and that's the whole reason we started the podcast, is because we were all just getting too many eye rolls. Like, people, it's good to find people to connect with and
absolutely.
talk about these
I love
shared
stuff,
interests.
Man. Yeah, it's made my day. Thank you.
Yeah, same here. Well, thanks a lot, man, and hopefully you can come back on for your next short or something. We'll talk about something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. See ya.
Thank you. See ya.